Hey there, welcome to Radical Improvements, my style and self-improvement channel. Today we are joined by Joe from Passion Unchained, and we are going to talk about online dating profiles, specifically online dating photography, because that is what Joe does for a living. Joe and I actually did a previous video about how to set up your Tinder and what the best practices are for that, and I'll leave a link to that in the notes below if you haven't seen that already. Today we're going to focus entirely on the differences between good photos and bad photos. So how are you doing today, Joe?
Doing good. Just had a little bit of Indian food and
Nice.
I'm feeling great.
Nice. So I think we're going to start by really dialing in on like what not to do. Let's start with that stuff, shall we? So what are
Juicy.
like the common mistakes you see? Because as a dating photographer, I guess you get a lot of your clients, you see what their profiles are like before you start working with them and before you start taking photos. So you must be very versed in like what you see as mistakes and what needs to be improved on.
100%. So I work with about 100 clients and I've gotten before photos from almost all of them because I didn't do that at the beginning. But I started doing it. I got a lot of before photos. And so then I could see over time what a lot of people were doing wrong. So I'm going to share my screen if that's cool with you.
Yeah, go for it.
And this is an article I wrote for Playing with Fire. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's another YouTuber dude, and I got this article on his website. Some of the bad photos. These are all photos I got from my clients. They're one of the common ones is not well framed. Either you're partially out of frame, or it's a really unflattering angle. Like just some people have like a selfie that's like from really really low. Or number two, it's a selfie. Number three, shout out to Radical, because one of the biggest things that mistakes guys make is they have really bad outfits. They're not fitting, or they're way too baggy, or they're way too tight and it shows their belly. If they're not slim, then it can, if you have it too tight around your belly, and this is all stuff I learned from this guy.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this mistake. This is like the one
it's
thing that I'm so sensitive to that one when I see Tinder profiles. Like whenever I see a Tinder profile and it's like bad outfits and bad fashion, I'm just like zoning in. So like I almost have tunnel vision these days, like entirely into the fashion and like aesthetic that way.
It's funny you say that because whenever we both look at the same photo and try to give somebody advice on a forum that we're both a part of, I'm like, oh, like the lighting and the framing is all off. You need to fix that. And you look too posed. And you're like, oh, but you're like, you'll focus in on the clothes. So like, I'm thinking like a photographer. You're thinking like a style consultant.
Yeah, it's
The
interesting.
the fourth is that it shows nothing about you. This is actually probably the most common thing with any photo that looks like halfway decent that guys take before they work with a professional or somebody that knows what they're doing, is they'll just take a photo of them looking good, just standing. I'm like, well, that doesn't show anything about you. It doesn't get a girl excited to see you. It's like, oh, cool, you can stand. Like, is your hobby standing around different parts in town? Like, I don't get it.
At least stand on a skateboard or something.
Yeah, you can stand in like a cool place or stand doing something. And like one photo of that or two photos of that at the beginning of your profile to show how you look clearly is okay. But more than that is too much. Number five is that backgrounds are just bland. Like, just like I've had a lot of before photos be like a guy, my client, like thinking he looks cool. He's like really a little bit too posed and maybe stiff and maybe like looking up. So he's not a good jawline. And then there's like just the wall, like the wall of his apartment or like a brick wall. It's like, it just looks weird. You're like, oh, it's a brick wall. It's cool. It's like, no, not really. Which brings me to number six is just being very posed. If you're not a model, the way that you naturally pose is going to look very posed. Models train. I'm a model now. I've started to become a model recently. First of all, I've posed, I've directed over 100 clients. And now that I'm a model, I pose myself. So I know how to pose so that I'm not looking posed, but that takes some practice. And that's something that I train my clients to do. I will get you to the point where you can do that instantly because it's my direction that will get you there.
Yeah.
Or find another good photographer or watch some posing videos on YouTube.
We'll take several thousand photos and hope you get it by accident.
That too. That's what I
Yeah.
did at first, for sure. And then number 7 is similar. They have an uglier, or really number 6, 7, and 8 are all in the same line. Very posed, or like your facial expression is like, or like you're like in the middle of talking or something. It just looks really awkward.
Yeah.
8 is pretty much the same as number 6. 9 is the photos are framed weirdly. So like kind of similar to number 1 is they're you're kind of out of frame. It's unflattering angle. Sometimes they're just like you're not like somewhat near the center, or like the rule of thirds. If you're a photography geek, you're just like at the top right of the frame. It's like, or something weird like this. And I'll show you examples, because this is all kind of like up in the air unless you actually see examples. So I'm going to start, that's just the beginning of the article. That one, see, that's a very bland, unflattering background. It doesn't, it's like, why? Plus he's very posed and everything is too big. Like his shirt, like the suit is too big. So there's a few things going wrong here. It's the background is, and the clothes and the pose. This guy, it's pretty much all of those as well. It's a really bright red shirt. It just has like looks like some kind of jersey style shirt with a word on it. The shirt's kind of weird. The facial expression is just way too cheesy. And the background is like, it's just white nothingness. And it's the unflattering angle. So this is, I would say, very, very low. And I have another photo of him that's really, really great.
Is that what they call soy face? You know what soy face is? Or is that the wrong one? That isn't soy face.
No, that's it.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah.
And I'm okay saying that because we got really good photos of him that make him look super edgy. So you'll see I have other photos of him.
Because like soy face to me was always like whenever you got a picture of you in the background going like that, that's soy face. Yeah. It's a guy who's like, he doesn't know how to make a facial expression in a photo. So he just makes a really like over the top wacky one. And it's a sign of someone who doesn't know what to do in a photo. They do that because they think that's going to make them look like interesting. And like, yeah, it's kind of like a beginner mistake, I think, whenever I see guys doing that, because like you haven't been in a lot of photos, maybe if you do that all the time.
Yeah, it's that, but plus it's the opposite of showing edge. You talk about showing edge a lot, like being edgy. This is the opposite of being edgy. This is like the person that you meet a girl and you're like, hey, what's your name? And she's like, Mindy, and you're like, oh my god, that's such a cool name. It's like, what? Like just being overly enthusiastic about nothing. Like that's kind of the vibe that this gives off. It's like super try hard. You're just like the guy that's like, oh cool, that's great, when like it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, bad high energy.
Yeah. This is another one, and I'll stop at this one for the examples of bad photos. More bad examples, but just to keep it simple so that the information sinks in your brain easily. Here's another one. I mean, the lighting is just so dark. His face, it's not as bad of a face as the one before, but it's just like, it's a very posed, awkward smile. And like the background is just a place. And also you can't really see much of the shirt. It might be a cool shirt, but here it looks kind of baggy. You can't really see much of it. He's not doing anything in particular. It's a very unflattering photo. How do I unshare? There we go.
Cool. Yeah, there's some good like insight into maybe some guys aren't familiar with. It's like we said, we did another video where we talked about fashion, and you were saying that guys have it's obliviousness or like ignorance to like what they could do better and like what they're doing wrong. And it's not like a willful ignorance or that. Like some guys just don't know like how good you could make your profile look. So they're just doing like basic mistakes and not quite hitting the right like beats and not like hitting the right stuff. And obviously if they go and see you, they don't have to worry about that because you're going to do all of that stuff for them. So it's like, like all the factors that make good photos, which we're going to talk about in a second, like we can just avoid the mistakes. As like, you just need to know what the mistakes are, and then you'll be able to avoid them. So it's good that we actually like write out all of the mistakes. I think this is a great time to move towards, what do you actually do, Joe? What are you actually meant to be trying to achieve?
This is a great question. So I'm going to share my screen again, but first, pretty much all of the things that I designed the packages. So I do dating profile photo shoot packages. If you want to work with me, and if you just don't like my nose or my eyebrows are too thick for you or whatever, and you want to work with another photographer, great. Show them this video, have them, make sure they're on the same page as you with what kind of vibe you're trying to get, and and like use their expertise if you want. You don't have to work with me. This information will help you if you just get good photos in general.
I will say that be careful with the photographer you pick, because
Yeah.
I've seen guys pick very bad, well, not very good portrait photographers that create photos that are not suitable for online dating. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
100%. I say that because I don't want I want to work with people who want to work with me. I don't want to work with anyone who feels like, I don't want to be too salesy. It's kind of a thing for me. But there have been a lot of clients who come to me after having paid for a photo shoot. In fact, one of the clients that I'm going to fly out to Denver for later this month, he has worked with, I think, 2 photographers, and he's like, they come out with posed photos. And the thing with any photographer who's not a dating profile photographer, it's very unique in photography in that I'm not just thinking about one thing, which is how to make the photo look good. I'm thinking how to make the photo look good is like here on the list of my priorities. Number 1 is, what does it say about you? And number 2 is like, do you look candid? And like, really, I would flip those. Number 1 is, do you look candid? Number 2 is, what does this say about you? What does this show about you? Because girls aren't being like, oh, he looks good. They're like, oh, he looks good. Plus, it looks like he's interesting, and it looks like he has his shit together, and he doesn't look creepy, and he looks like he's got social status, or like all these things. They're ticking off all these boxes, and I need to take photos that make you look candid and show all these things behind the scenes. And most photographers don't know how to do that because it's a different skill. But
yeah,
without further ado, I'm going to show you how to take better Tinder photos. So this is from the same article. I'm going to start with there's a cut. Well, I'll start with this one. This is actually one that my client had before we worked together. It's very rare. I would say there's a couple of them that are pretty good that clients have taken that already have. I still get them better results. I mean, both of these people got better results after working with me. But these these are okay photos. This I say is a good photo. It still doesn't say much about him, but it's like, oh, it's cold. Like he lives in he's in Texas. I'm gonna say what city, but he's in Texas, and it's like it's not cold where he lives.
I would have said he lives in like Norway. If
So
I saw that photo.
So his heritage is in somewhere in East. I don't want to say too many details in case people know him, but his heritage is somewhere in Eastern Europe, and where it's cold. And so that's probably when he's visiting home, because I know he visits there a lot. So that's interesting, and it's also just a good photo, well framed, well lit, and that's taken with a camera, with a smartphone camera. I can tell. This is a similar deal. This is portrait mode. You can kind of tell because the way it does the edge on the thumb is kind of off, but only I would be able to see that. This guy's a bodybuilder. It's just a cool vibe. That's Austin in the background, and he's in the pool. It's like, yo, that's really cool.
Looking
that's
like
a good
badass.
photo.
Look like if you've got a good body, looking like a badass next to a pool is never a bad shot. Let's be honest. Like, it's always good.
100%. This is, I would say, the best one I got before anyone worked with me. And then this one, these are starting to work with me. This one is pretty good. I have some criticisms of it, but it's still a great photo. He's looking very good, looking very relaxed and chill, and it's got a cool vibe.
I have some criticism.
This one,
I have criticism of the shirt he's wearing, but we'll move on.
Yeah, I did not apply your fashion stuff to him, but photo wise is pretty good. And this one I really like because it shows a lot of personality. This is legit what this guy wears all the time.
Yeah, no. This is archetype. This is like his archetype. You can tell. Like, this is like he's a cowboy. You know what I mean? So that's what he is. Like, you can tell.
Just look at his facial hair. Every time, like where you and I would say like okay, he would say 10-4 the whole time. He even text me 10-4.
I would never change a thing about this guy's wardrobe because I would feel out of place, like fucking like telling a dude who's so at peace with what he is, like changing anything up. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be like, if someone wanted help that was like, I want to dress like a cowboy or whatever, I'd research it and figure it out. But this guy like clearly just lives what he is, and like that's just it's really cool to see.
Thanks. Yeah, this one's cool. This one doesn't show too much about him, but it's just a really flattering shot. And the facial expression is like super flirty. That's one thing I like about it. Plus, he has like some cool accessories on and stuff. There's definitely gains you can make with fashion accessories. You know more about this than me. He could be wearing bracelets and rings, but
I like what he's wearing.
A good start. Yeah. This is another guy. He's very built. You can't totally see that, but you can kind of see that in his frame and his bicep there. But it's him doing an instrument, and something about instruments that make girls go wild. Hobbies like that.
Yeah, do you like to throw
I want
in
to
like
see.
you like to throw in the classics like the music shot, the dog shot, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
If I can, yeah. And then I really like that one, but I want to keep this concise. So I guess I'll quickly go over this one. It's the next one that I really want to show. Well, this is a super playful face, and then also it's super edgy. It kind of takes you a moment to realize that that's a belt, and he's like, "Oh, what is he saying in this photo?" And his face kind of offsets the intensity of having a belt on the photo. He's just super playful. Just that face is pretty awesome. And then the next thing. This is my favorite photo of all of them on this article. It just looks like the fucking cover of a romance novel. His physique isn't like super fucking amazing because he doesn't have a six pack, but just the lighting, and the coloring, the monocolor, it's almost monocolor. It's just like really desaturated and just kind of sepia toned. And then he has he's like taking off the cork of the bottle. It's just this photo I fucking love. I can just imagine this being the cover of a romance novel.
It definitely catches like the attention if a girl's like flicking through, you know. If he went, I would lead with it like 100%. I'd lead the profile with it because the girl's going to be like,
Yeah.
ooh, you know, and then you can have like more like not as hard hitting photos after it. I'd probably go for. So like you'd go for like this first. This is like super like basic. Let's be honest, this is sexual. Like, this is like an idea of like a sexual photo. And then you would just do like your more like hobby or like nice dress photos after it. But you'd lead them in with like this to polarize, in my opinion. But yeah.
100%. So I want to go over the takeaways from that if you're cool with it.
Yeah, go for it.
So there are a couple takeaways here. One thing you'll notice is that there's better composition, like it's just more pleasing to the eye. What some people would say is like the photographer's eye. It's really not that mysterious. It's just, are the things placed in the frame, in the square, in the rectangle, is everything placed in a pleasing way? And the better ones that you saw, like they're placed in a pleasing way where your eye looked at them and it wasn't like there wasn't like this like clash in your mind of like emotions. It was just like, oh cool, that like it's pleasing, it's well designed. Another thing you also saw is that there's what I call higher background separation. That's a technical term meaning the back, kind of like what you see here. I'm actually filming this with one of the cameras that I used on shoots. And you can see the background is blurry and that I seem separate from the background. That's just another way to say blurry background. If you want to like simplify it. The blurrier the background, the more expensive the photo seems, because to get a blurry background, you have to have expensive equipment. Although that is changing because phone portrait mode is becoming better. It's still not nearly as good and not nearly as versatile as a camera, and that will be several years if it is possible. It might be like 5 to 10 years before it's the same thing. But by then, cameras would have gotten so much better. So that's null and void, really.
Nice.
And also you could see that the better photos are more natural and more candid. It kind of feels like I had to define candid at one point. I think it was on another podcast or another video interview. And it was, if it looks like you're not aware of the camera, or at least if you're aware of it, you're not changing your behavior or your body language because of that awareness. So it's almost like the camera does not have an impact on what you look like. Now, of course, on my photo shoots, I am directing each client very, very specifically. I'm like, hey, turn your head a little this way, put your chin slightly down, give me a little smirk. And so I'm doing all of that kind of thing. But I've worked with over 100 clients and I'm a model myself. So I do it in a way which makes you look like you're natural, which makes you look like you're candid. So either work with me or work with a photographer that you see all their photos and they all look candid. That's extremely important. That's the most important thing that most photographers don't get, along with the next thing that I'll say, which is the photos have to tell a story about you. The more you can look at it and say something about who you are, the better the photo. Like if you looked at, say, this photo, you could probably list off a few things about him. You could probably say, oh, this guy has a cowboy kind of thing, kind of mentality. You get a vibe by like, oh, this guy like has a vibe. He would go to a place with a pool table. He seems like the kind of guy that would just grab a beer and then like just sit and chat with friends on his porch. And you can kind of hear the Southern accent just looking at him. And so there's a lot of things that this photo says about him. You could make some pretty safe assumptions about who this guy is just by looking at this. The other ones, this one actually not as much, but even then, like having that in the beginning of the profile, you'd be like, well, this guy's fun, he's playful, he knows how to be flirty, he's got a masculine energy around him, and also his fashion. So this was actually spoiler alert, this is a photo I took of a friend when we were just hanging out. This actually wasn't like on a photo shoot. This is actually what he wore, and this is 100% just his fashionist style. You'd be like, oh, this guy has good fashion sense. It means he's probably like aware of his surroundings and socially aware, and like his face is like he's very comfortable with himself, and that's very much his vibe.
Yeah,
you can get a vibe.
I recommend similar shirts to what he's wearing. Actually, it's nice. Pretty cool. I would say as well about this guy's got good style. Yeah, your candid point as well. I remember when you took me out, and it was like we're trying to get that walking shot. Do you remember? And it was like the way you were describing candid. It's like it's been like being caught in natural motion, I guess was the way I would describe candid, because like we were trying to capture me walking, and it was like surprisingly technically difficult to get that to work. Like the walking, like everyone go out and try and take walking shots, like and just see like how unnatural like half the shots come out, because you're like caught in, like it blurs, or you're caught in the wrong spot, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, it is actually surprisingly difficult to catch good candid, which is why my camera went bad there. But we're talking about candid shots, and I was just saying that when Joe took me out for a walking shot, and we tried to do that, and how technically difficult it was to get a good walking shot. And obviously it looks badass if you get it right, but like there's so much that actually goes into getting a really good version of that shot, which is why I recommend getting a photographer as opposed to trying to do a lot of the stuff yourself, and getting a photographer that knows how to shoot candid. And those are like the two main things. Like get someone who's professional, because you can buy a camera and learn, but god damn it, the amount of time and money you're going to put into that. And then get someone who knows how to shoot candid in the style that Joe's talking about, because that is what's really important about having a Tinder profile that doesn't look, that the look and vibe we're going for requires it to be like snapshots of your life. You know what I mean? That's what Joe's talking about. Like it tells a story about your life. It tells a story about your vibe and the vibe you want to create that's attractive. And candid is the best way to show that, because as I said, it's like it's like someone has followed you around in your life and just caught, like taken random shots. And I think that's what you kind of try and do with your like packages, isn't it? It's like you're trying to like get a snapshot of their life in popping quality photos,
Yeah, it's almost like you're a famous person and like there's paparazzi with a really good camera, just like snapping you doing cool things, looking good. Another analogy I like to use is it's like you have a friend that's a professional photographer that just happens to bring his camera when you're hanging out, and these are the photos that he's like sent to you over the past year.
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. And it's created a really natural ending for us. Really well done, man. So how do people find you? I'm going to try and provide a link to wherever you want. So great. I want people to come to you and have a look at what you're offering. So if you want to give us some summary of what that is. For sure.
So I offer dating profile photo shoot packages, and that is a one-stop shop to getting your profile fucking amazing. I do so the most popular package, there's ones that are slightly more, slightly less, but the most popular package is we work together for a photo shoot, which takes about 4 to 5 hours, and at the end you get 300 photos, 200 to 300 photos. And in addition, I hired a girl. She's pretty attractive, and what she does is she looks through your photos and she picks out 5 profiles for you, 5 groups of 6 photos each that she suggests that you put on. 2 of them will be geared towards casual relationships, if you want to find girls for friends with benefit or a fuck buddy, and then 2 of them will be geared towards serious relationships if you want to find a girlfriend or something more serious. And then the last one are just her personal favorites in general that you can mix and match and throw into any of the profiles and replace them. And she'll also record a voice memo explaining exactly why she would swipe right on those photos. Why did she choose those photos? What does she like about those photos? And that gives you A, confidence. You know that they're attractive because this girl is telling you why they're attractive. And then B, it also gives you a little bit of awareness about why you should put certain ones up and not the others. And you also get access to the full 200 or 300 as well. But I just give you that little bit so you're not overwhelmed. So like, which ones do I put up? You instantly know, cool, I'm going to put this one up.
Yeah.
I also include a lot more. It's all on my website. including wardrobe guidance, coaching on how to look great in front of the camera. That's all on my website. You'll figure that all out there. And that is at www.datingunchained.com, datingunchained.com. And yeah.
Cool. I'll put a link down below for anyone who gets lost. And then, yeah, they can come and find you and have a look in more detail. So yeah, great fucking video, man. It was good chatting to you. And I will say goodbye to everyone. Peace out.